Alright, am I live over here? Should I start in a second? Okay. Well, afternoon everyone. I'm very happy to be over here. Um, this is one of the few live sessions that I've been a part of over the last few weeks, of course. It's a pleasure to be a part of this session, which has been arranged by EduTech, of course. I've spoken at their conferences in the past, and they've been doing a wonderful job. Um, well, the purpose of this live session is to basically talk about education post the lockdown, and what do we have in mind in terms of education. It's a very precarious situation that we find ourselves in as educators. The world isn't the same anymore, and then I'm sure that you would all agree that things have changed drastically for educators, for school managements, for parents, and especially for our young students. Um, they were not expecting this, no one was expecting this, of course, but given the current crisis we find ourselves in, I think it's important to understand that there will be a life beyond this, and we have to plan for that life. So in terms of education, I am here to talk about what I feel the world will look like post COVID-19, post lockdown. I have a few thoughts to share over here, of course. Well, I'm Reekrit Serai. I'm the MD of Satluj group of schools. We're a group of schools that are based in Upper North India. We're a 44-year-old chain of schools, of course. We've recently entered franchising, and then we're about to open a few more schools in different parts of the country. So what is my experience in terms of running schools, and what do I recommend to school managements, to educators, to parents, to students in the next few months, of course. A few years ago, I gave a presentation which was very well received about the 9 pillars of great schools in the 21st century. Well, I'll talk a bit about that, of course, right now, and then I add a twist with regards to the virus, with regards to the pandemic that we find ourselves in. I can see that a few of you have started to join. Thank you. It's a pleasure to see you too, Mr. Raj M. Malhotra, and good afternoon to Ms. Neha. So what are the 9 pillars of a great school in the 21st century, and especially during the time of COVID-19? Well, the first pillar, of course, should be a shared vision, value, culture, ethos, and ethics based on the highest expectations of all. This is something which is very important for us to understand at this point in time, that we find ourselves in a crisis, and the culture of the school, the culture of the whole education ecosystem has to, of course, be kept in mind, and we'll have to edit that, we'll have to change it as per what we deem fit. So I have a few things to share with you about culture, of course. Culture in schools, culture in various businesses. But the culture of a school is the most important thing that you can think about. The whole ecosystem within a school depends on the culture, and many of us think that that culture trickles down from the top, but I feel that culture is prevalent at every level. Someone said very wisely that if you're going to tell people the truth, be funny or they'll kill you. So this just goes to show culture, of course, in this current situation that we find ourselves in. And someone also said that it's better to remain silent and be thought a fool rather than to speak out and remove all doubt. Now, I'm sad to say that the culture in various education institutions in different parts of the world is similar. It's a culture that's ruled from of course the top. It's a dictatorship that we find in terms of the principal in each school. Well, I think that things have changed drastically over the last few weeks, and then we have to, of course, keep this point in mind, that there has to be a change. There has to be a change in terms of culture of various schools as well. What is my recommendation in terms of culture, and what is the biggest culture shock that we found ourselves in at this current point of time? But in terms of education, the biggest culture shock that we find ourselves in at this point of time is that suddenly, over a period of just a few days, we have shifted from a grade-based culture to a culture that is not dependent on grades at this point of time. That is dependent on the true essence of education, which is learning. We've shifted towards this aim suddenly, rapidly, and the whole education ecosystem over the last few centuries has tried to shift towards the same. Well, I'm very happy to say that because of this sudden shift that we find ourselves in, there is going to be a tremendous change in the culture of every school from now on. And that's a very important change, and I hope that this change stays. Even within our current schools at this point of time, I can see that kids are motivated to research beyond the content which is being shared to them in the form of presentations, in the form of worksheets, in the form of educational apps. They are researching more and more, and this will have a wonderful effect post the lockdown, because students will actually understand that the whole education system and of course schools aim isn't to make them mug up facts and figures. It is to give them an experience which they can't face in other places, which they can't find in other places. So the whole role of a school is to give them that education experience, the social experience. It's the experience of talking, meeting with your peers. It's the whole experience of being a part of a system. Whereas now, they've absolutely understand that content is freely available online, and that's what a lot of kids are doing at this point in time. They are researching. So that's a wonderful cultural change that we've seen, and I think that this will definitely continue post the pandemic that we find ourselves in. The second pillar of a great school, of course, is inspirational leadership at all levels throughout the school. Now, I've got a wonderful example to share with you at this point of time. One of the world's biggest asset management firms is called the Vanguard Group. During the 2008 recession, they had assets under their management to the tune of $1 trillion. And then the recession happened, which was the largest that we've seen in current times, of course, after the 70s. So what happened in this case is that the CEO particularly made it clear to his board that I am not going to lay off anyone. Alright, if you want me to continue as your CEO post this current crisis that we find ourselves in, I am not going to lay off anyone. I'll give everyone a 50% salary cut just for the next few months so that we can ride out this storm. Why? Because when everything comes back to normal, I will need the same set of employees to service our clients. And things really paid off for them. Things paid off for them in this sense that they've currently got $6 trillion as asset under management, and they are one of the biggest asset management firms in the world. So leadership is a very important facet of the current crisis that we find ourselves. Those schools that are run by wonderful, inspirational leaders in terms of their trustees, in terms of their principals, and so on and so forth, they will ride out this storm. And once they bounce back, they're going to bounce back much stronger. So it's important to just keep a few points in mind. What do you do if you head a school at this point of time? What do you do if you're a trustee of a school as well? Well, it's a very simple point that you have to keep in mind. You have to communicate clearly. You have to be transparent. You have to be authentic. Now, we all know the current financial crisis that schools are facing at this point of time. They have tremendous costs to pick up, and in many situations we find ourselves in, we can clearly see that many schools might even go under over the next few months. And if they go under, there will be layoffs to the tunes of millions of teachers all over the world, and especially in India as well. So what do you do if you are heading a school at this point of time? What should be your game plan? Well, it's a very precarious situation that you find yourselves in, because the various regulatory bodies have passed different orders for different states. Some states are allowing schools to charge fees, some states are not allowing schools to charge fees as well in India. And I mean, even if you can charge fees at this point in time, you aren't allowed to charge the full amount of the fees which your parents would pay otherwise. So there's a massive financial crunch that schools are going to find themselves in. So if you're a leader of a school, it's important to be transparent with your team. Communicate this clearly to your team. They need to have faith, and then they need to have trust in you at this point. Sorry, I think there was just a blip in the video. They need to have faith and trust in the management of schools at this point in time, and that's how they will work harder. So it's a commendable effort of educators the world over. I am particularly seeing that teachers are coming out of their comfort zone and they are taking online lessons, they are teaching students day in and day out. It is not an easy task. So hats off to all the teachers in different parts of the world. You're doing a wonderful job. It's a essential job that you are performing at this point in time. Thank you for your work. And I'm sure that post the crisis, parents and students will thank you as well. But you find yourself in a difficult situation at this point in time. In many areas of India, those parents who can pay fees because of certain orders that have come from the governments are not paying fees on time. But I'm sure that within the next few months things will be fine. And if they are not, I think education should never stop. So if you are an educator at this point in time, please particularly make sure that you do not stop educating kids. It's a silent protest that you are making, but it's an important job that you are performing, and it is required. So communicate, be transparent, be authentic, and leverage the efforts of your team at this point of time. Those schools who are supporting the parents during this crisis, who are supporting their kids, remember those students and those parents are going to remember you for the rest of your lives. So if they can't pay you fees, that's okay. They will eventually, so please do give them leeway. And those parents who can pay fees to various schools, of course, it is my humble request, please do pay your fees. We are all going through the same difficulties at this point of time. There are difficulties at home, of course. So as a leader, you have to empathize with your team. You will see that your teachers don't have domestic help. They have to clean and mop and cook their own food and wash their dishes and wash their clothes, look after their kids, look after the tantrums of the spouses, and yet they take online lessons. So it's a time to be an empathetic leader and to not be an authoritarian leader. The third pillar is, of course, exceptional teaching, learning, assessment, and feedback to support the highest levels of attainment and achievement. That's our job as educators. No matter what the crisis is, no matter what is going on in different parts of the world, we have to make sure that education doesn't stop. 85% of the jobs in 2030 haven't been created yet. And given the current crisis that we find ourselves in, it's pretty obvious that a lot of many of the jobs will also be created. So we have to stay in sync in terms of the job market, see what are the skills that are required, and of course educate our kids on that basis. The fourth pillar is a relentless focus on engaging and involving students. Now we all understand that we live in the era of social media. FOMO is something that we all understand, but there's also one other phenomenon which is known as FOBA, F-O-B-A, fear of being alone. None of us want to be alone during this interconnected world, and that's a fact that we need to fully understand at this point in time. 60% of Gen Z students, of course, want to collaborate. They are open to collaborating, and that's what the online world is giving them. They are giving them a platform to collaborate. 50% of our Gen Z students at this point in time, they can't live without YouTube. There's a very interesting anecdote that I share at various conferences, and then those of you who have been a part of conferences that I've spoken at the past will understand this one as well, that that during our lifetimes, um, the staff and of course the kids, we have shifted from various social media platforms. So from High Five to Orkut, to 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 Facebook, to WhatsApp, to Snapchat, and now to TikTok. The world is rapidly changing, and our kids are a part of this. So, in order to understand the difficulties that they are going through, it is also important to understand where they spend a major chunk of their time. Social media, of course, has its pros and cons. Various apps on the net, of course, have their own pros and cons. Someone was telling me in an online panel yesterday that his child, uh, you, like is a part of various online lessons that are being taught at this point of time. So he's got the online. So he's got his teacher in front of him on a screen, and then he's also got Netflix open on the other screen. So this will happen. So your kids might not be listening to all of the online lessons that you teach at this point of time, um, but they are definitely happy that you are making the effort to teach them. The fifth pillar is, of course, personalized and highly effective continuous professional development within a learning environment. The role of an educator is getting redefined. There are new skills that we have to teach our kids, and we have to take cognizance of these new skills. So, what are the skills that you require post the COVID world? Resilience is a very important skill that we have to teach our kids. So, it isn't about STEM or STEAM anymore. We have moved way beyond that. Things have drastically changed over the last few weeks, and we can all feel the pressure. Resilience, that's a very important skill that we have to teach our kids, and educators have to be trained for this skill. So I would request all school managements to please take workshops on, of course, this new skill that we need to hone. The second most important skill that we need to develop post the COVID world is adaptability. We have to adapt, and we have to adapt very fast. And I'm happy to say that educators, especially my own team, because since I work with them closely, the hundreds of teachers who work in all our schools, of course, hats off to you. They have picked up skills very, very fast within a short period of time, and they are experts now. And there are a lot of things that we learn along the way. So we also have to be flexible. So flexibility is a skill that we need to hone at this point of time. And the last skill that we need to teach of our kids, and that managements of schools should teach the teachers, is emotional intelligence. And this cannot be stressed upon enough. We've spoken about this for decades, but this is the time that EI needs to actually come into play, and we need to develop our EI skills. The sixth pillar of a great school in the 21st century is the stimulating and inclusive at this point of time who do not even have access to a computer or a laptop at home, out of the 1.5 billion students or so. So the whole meaning of inclusivity has changed. What do we do now? So regardless of your socio-economic background, inclusivity means whether you are connected online, whether you've got a computer, whether you've got a smartphone, or whether you've got a laptop at home. And those who don't are suffering. So I would request school managements, educators to take this point into consideration as well, that those of your students who do not have access to the internet through the various devices that they use and due to the various lack of devices at home, please make sure that you are making an effort to educate them as well. So SMSs, physical books can be sent to them, send them worksheets, give them notes, and I'm very happy to say that a lot of schools are doing this, of course. Schools in smaller towns, tier 3 to tier 8 towns, even we are doing this to a certain extent as well. So the whole meaning of inclusivity has changed, and we have to keep this point in mind. The seventh pillar is a rich and creative curriculum within and beyond the classroom, fully meeting the needs of individuals and groups of students. The curriculum, I am happy to say, is up to date. I'm very happy with the recommendations given by various education boards in India. But it's time to rethink the curriculum that we have. There are talks in various educational circles that the syllabus will be reduced by around 1/3. But do you think that is going to solve the difference? Of course, classes are underway at this point in time. It's important to understand that we need to teach our students skills of the future, so that they can get jobs of the future once they pass out of school and once they pass out of college in the next few years. And I'm sorry to say, a lot of schools are not teaching these required skills, and that's possibly because of this limitation in terms of the curriculum that we get from various national education bodies. So the curriculum needs to be looked at again, and we should definitely envision a new curriculum to be taught to students post COVID. There are a lot of skills that they picked up over the last few weeks, and there are many more skills that they will hone over the next few weeks or the next few months during the lockdown. So education board should take this into consideration and revise the syllabus. And of course, from next year onwards, or during the current academic year, a new syllabus which is based of course on the old one, but which has aspects of jobs of the future, skills of the future, should definitely be taught. The 8th pillar of a great school in the 21st century is high quality partnership with parents, the community, other schools and networks, locally, nationally and internationally. Well, a school can only survive if it is deep rooted in the community that it is based in. It's very essential. It is essential to have strong and deep rooted bonds with the parents, of course. A school can survive only because of the support that it gets from the students and of course its parents. A school is made up of students. So if there are no students, and if then there is no school. But it's the level of the partnership that really determines the future of a school. And at this point of time, it's the deep rootedness that we and the strong bonds that are formed during the crisis that will lead to a better education ecosystem once we all come out of this pandemic and the lockdown. So quality partnerships are what we are looking for, and then I'm happy to see that there are a lot of exchange programs between schools in different parts of the world. We are in touch with schools in different parts of India, in different parts of the world, in the UK, Singapore, in the Middle East, in the US, and I constantly interact with educationists from different parts of the world and talk about issues which revolve around education. So because of this sudden shift to the virtual world, I think a lot of us have been brought closer together, and then we are trying to help each other to solve a lot of issues. I'm really happy to see that that students are interacting with students from different parts of the world, and then they're sharing their thoughts. I'm happy to see that our educators are interacting with each other, and of course they are sharing their thoughts as well. The 9th and the last pillar is a robust and rigorous self-evaluation and collective review. This is backward looking. So with every new project that we initiate within our schools, and with every new project that every school initiates at this current point of time, or even in the future as well, it's really important to review the effectiveness of these projects, and to look backward and see what has worked for us and what hasn't. So that's a very important pillar of a school in the 21st century. So I was given half an hour to speak. I think I've spoken for close to half an hour. I've walked you through the 9 pillars of a great school in the 21st century, and what are my views in terms of education post the current crisis that we find ourselves in. I can see that a lot of you have asked some questions, so I think I'll shift on to the questions now. So if I can just go through them, just give me a second. Uh, Mr. Raj Malhotra, you've shared your views, and I think something you said is that the biggest problem that the students are facing are lack of information from school managements. I would I would say partially, but I would say that it's important to empathize with school managements at this point of time. They are trying to come up with solutions that can really help to educate students. It is not an easy time for them as well, with just a portion of the fees being received. They are schools. A lot of schools have taken up a lot of loans, and a lot of schools have taken up loans in terms of infra, in terms of buses. There are a lot of costs that have to be paid. So I think school managements also have to take these points into consideration. But there should be more information from school managements. You are absolutely right, and school management should be transparent and should be open to communicating with parents. So I hope that answers your question. One other question that's asked by Ms. Neha is, will online schooling be the new thing after COVID? Well, I've been asked this question a lot over the last few days. I think what we're working towards is a blended way of schooling. I think that the features of online education will not vanish post the crisis. I think that we've all understood that online education has been the saving grace of the education system over the last few weeks. So I think it will become a way of educating students in the future. But I'm looking at a blended approach, and I'm in touch with a lot of EdTech companies, a lot of schools, and the answer isn't still clear. But I think EdTech and online education is here to stay, and it should stay because it's helped us a lot, I feel. So I hope that answers your question. Mr. Raj Malhotra, you've shared one more question, or there's one more observation you've shared. My wife is a teacher in a school in Mumbai and is continuously worried about her job, whether her job remains for long, then what happens to her job. Fine. Well, I would say that she shouldn't be worried about her job. School managements are looking into this. Unless the fee situation is resolved, and if schools don't get access to funding from the government, which we are requesting at this point in time, I think there should be no layoffs. As I said initially as well, it's important for leaders of schools to take this point into consideration, that they should look after their employees, because once the crisis is over, the same employees are going to stay immensely loyal to them, will really appreciate the effort that school managements have put into making sure that they are looked after. So I will not be worried about her job. There might be, a portion of the salary might not be paid, but that is something which we all do understand, because if schools do not receive income, then they have to take loans to pay salaries. So it depends on the financial situation of each school. We have tried to look after our staff as much as we can, and we are of course going to do this in the future. But it particularly depends on the management of the school that you're referring to. They should pay the salaries if they can. If they can't, then they should be transparent and open with their staff and explain it to them. So I hope that answers your query. Miss Vishakha, will school now have to be more tech oriented, more investments on tech? Will this increase the school fees? My recommendation to all school managements at this point in time is that don't increase the fees. Try and manage within your current financial structure that you have in place. I don't think that school managements will increase the fees for at least 1 year. Even the regulatory bodies are discussing this with various school managements, and I think there are various regulations in place that will not allow schools to raise the fees. Schools should look for free of cost educational resources. There are plenty of them. Go in for something like Microsoft Teams, Google Classroom, go in for I would not recommend Zoom at this point in time, given the various issues that we're facing. But schools may need to invest in EdTech in the future, but then that's between them and the vendors. So like if the EdTech vendors can give a leeway to schools to implement EdTech in the schools and create an infrastructure for them without taking money, of course, for the next 8 to 12 months, I think that will help all of us. But of course, this varies case by case. So will the school fees increase? No, they shouldn't. But tech is here to stay. So I hope that answers your question. Miss Divraj, what about the students going to the first standard or junior KG? How should they go about this? And what about their admissions? When do you think they're likely to take place? If they're delayed, should they wait for a whole year? Well, as far as I'm concerned, I don't think that schools are refusing new admissions at this point in time. They might not charge the admission fee, but they should admit students. And automatically those schools that have the next class available, they should promote students. I don't understand what's going on in the school that you're referring to, but a major chunk of the schools are not refusing admissions if they have seats, of course, and they are promoting students. If they're not promoting students, then they are going against the regulations of the various educational boards and of course the MHRD. You have to promote students no matter what. The only two classes where automatic promotion may not happen are of course the class 10th and the class 12th classes, because these are the board classes. So please do get in touch with the management of your school and talk about this issue that you're facing. It shouldn't arise as per me, right? So I hope that answers your question. Mr. Tejinder Singh Nagi, sir, smaller schools which are not government aided are more worried, as no word from the government at all about containment and especially financial aid. Well, I fully agree with you at this point of time. If you look at the government, it has allowed schools in various states. I mean, various state governments have allowed schools to charge tuition fees which do not even cover half of the cost which are linked to schools, which do not even cover salary costs in many cases of schools. Well, regardless of the size of the school, I think every school is suffering financially at this point in time, and there is no word about financial aid from the government. So a recent post that I put up on LinkedIn also mentioned this, that that there should be some financial aid. If the government doesn't want school to charge fees, we are absolutely fine with that. That is not an issue. We as educators will continue to educate our students and not charge a single rupee. But how will the salaries of the staff be paid? Alright, how will the loans be paid? So we are requesting the government through various associations of schools that we are a part of course, in North India and of course in different parts of the country, that please offer some financial aid to schools which are unaided schools. Second of all, please reimburse the pledge money which the various state education departments have kept with them, which is to the tune of 3 to 6 months of the salary of the staff. Please reimburse those or liquidate those so that we can at least pay salaries without taking fees from parents for the next few months. As of now, there is no answer in terms of financial aid with respect to various states. But I think something should happen soon. Otherwise, all the schools in India are going to suffer, especially those that are unaided schools. So I mean, there's of course a lot more which I can say at this point in time. But we are in touch with various states, and we are talking about these issues. I hope that answers your question, but I fully understand what you are saying, and we all sailing in the same boat. We've all been thrown into the deep end of the ocean, and all the schools need to unite and talk about this. the teachers need to unite and make their voices heard, because nothing is happening for them, right? So I hope this answers your question. Miss Anju has asked a question over here: would the job for educators cut down? I'm not particularly sure whether there will be layoffs. Given the current circumstance which we find ourselves in, if schools cannot charge fees to a full extent, and if parents are not paying fees to schools, then possibly there can be salary cuts. In the future, if this sustains for 1 or 2 more months, then there can be layoffs as well. But that's a very grim situation that we'll find ourselves in. I hope that a middle path can be arrived at during the next 1 or 2 months. Otherwise, there will be financial difficulties faced by every school in India and in various parts of the world where they are fee-paying schools. So, will the jobs cut down in the future? I don't think they will. I think new jobs will emerge in terms of education. We've seen that a lot of these online classes of various other education institutions which are not linked to schools are flourishing. There are various portals of education like Khan Academy, Byju's, Merit Nation, Topper, so on and so forth, that are doing brisk business. So the jobs for educators will not vanish overnight. I think that they'll get more options. So if there's a layoff in the future, I would request you to get in touch with some educational apps and see if you can take online classes over there as well. But for the time being, it's all good. There will be no layoffs, at least for the next 1 or 2 months, as I foresee. So I hope that answers your question. And we have one more question. After this, I think that we'll end the session. So Mr. Ahmed has asked this question: how to overcome emotions for students since social distancing is the new thing? How to overcome emotions for students since social... Well, the mental health of students is of utmost concern during this lockdown that we face ourselves in. And a lot of us are going through various phases of mental health. Of course, they are the ups and downs that we are going through on a regular basis. It is not easy, and educators have to take cognizance of this fact, and they have to, of course, understand this. But I would like to say that it's commendable. That our students are coping well. They were not built for this. Even we, of course, weren't. No one has seen this happen ever. This is even worse than World War II. This basically might even be World War III as well. I have no clue. But it will be difficult for our students. It will be difficult for our kids. But this will make them stronger. It will make them braver. This is a life lesson that they will learn. Social distancing will be the new norm, and it should be, at least for the next few months. So I hope that answers your question to a certain extent. Please do feel free to get in touch with me on the various social media platforms that I am on. If you want more answers. We have one remark by Mr. Tejinder Singh Nagi again. Unfortunately, we are unable to move due to the lockdown, and the government hasn't been responding at all on phones or emails. It is a serious situation that we are facing, but hope for the best. Yes, we hope for the best. I think that's all we can do in this current situation. If sir, if you are a school owner, please do feel free to connect with me afterwards. I can put you in touch with the various association of schools in your area, and you can connect with them and fight for this cause, like schools all over the world are doing at this point in time. So I think we've come to the end of our wonderful session. I would like to thank you all for being a part of this. I had a wonderful time discussing the various questions that you've of course shared with me. I hope the points that I've shared have been useful. The nine pillars of great schools in the 21st century haven't changed. It's just that they have to be tweaked a bit for the post-COVID world. So thank you for being a part of this. I would like to thank EduTech India for giving me this platform to talk to such wonderful educators and parents. If you have any more questions, please feel free to send me a mail or connect with me on the various social media platforms that I'm a part of. So LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. My mail ID is my name, which is Reekrit Serai @gmail.com. It is spelled out REEKRITSERAI @gmail.com. So please send your questions over there, and I will try to answer all of the questions that come my way. Thank you for being a part of this session. Had a wonderful time, and look forward to being in touch with all of you in the future as well. Thank you, EduTech. Thank you, Neha.